Change is all around me.
It surrounds me, but I
crave the constant of change.
Free me.
So I can be me.
Make it work faster, harder, smarter.
That's what I'm doing after all.
Sometimes you have to fall for the sake of change.
Change nothing and nothing changes.
I expect change.
Make change, spare change,
Can change the world.
I face it, chase it.
Embrace it.
pulling that rug out from me only makes me a better jumper.
The bottom line, change is all around me.
It found me at the right time.
The wrong time.
You take too long time.
Time is money, makes the world go round.
I don't want it to go around me, but
I don't know what I don't know. Teach me.
preach me.
I don't need a preacher.
I just need someone to listen.
I gotta start somewhere.
It might not be at the beginning.
And it might not be with the end in mind.
Staying the same is not an option.
Because change is all around me.
And only I alone
Can change.
But I am not alone.
Because ATB listens.
Hi, everybody, and thank you all for joining us tonight at Studio Bell. My name is Adam Fox. I'm Director of Programs here at Studio Bell, home of the National Music Center. Before we get started with our acknowledgements and our announcements, I want to first take the opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Blackfoot and the people of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. So, for several years now, with the support of ATB, the National Music Center has collected stories from Alberta's music icons and pioneers. And yesterday, that hard work paid off in the culmination of our second annual ATB Storytellers exhibition. How many of you folks had a chance to see the gallery downstairs tonight? A few of you? Okay, good. There's a lot of depth of content in there. I encourage you to come back. We've been gathering oral histories since 2013, really trying to trace the musical history, the diverse musical history and the stories of music in Alberta. And it was such a natural fit for us to do festivals because, when you think about the musical legacy of this province, you can't help but think about the strength and the diversity of its festival scene. And we just tried to capture a summary of those diverse experiences and hopefully leave you with a sense of the deep connections and the different ways that we come together in communities, and music is an essential part of how we connect as communities. So please do take some time to check it out. It is on display for free in our drop-in zone until April of 2018. So as I mentioned, together with ATB, we've been gathering these oral histories, and they've just been such a tremendous partner, not only for the exhibition that you see downstairs and for the program that we have tonight, but for supporting our education programs and supporting our oral history, our desire to just capture those music stories. So we're excited to be able to use this program as a celebration of that partnership. So why are we here? Well, tonight we have the third installment of our ATB Storytellers series. We kicked things off with Jan Arden, and that was amazing with Holger Peterson, and then we put Jan on the other side of the chair and had her interview Tegan and Sarah, and that was a great program last year. And this year, I think the quality of the conversation will ramp up another level because we've got Calgary-based multi-platinum Canadian pop singer-songwriter Raghav as our guest for 2017. So, when we reached out to Raghav, we were like, who's going to talk to you? Who's going to interview you? I think, we've asked enough of Jan Arden. We need to extend the invitation for some other folks. And Cardinal was one of his first suggestions. And I think, given their collaborations together and their deep friendship, we're really excited to have Cardinal Official here to interview Raghav. But we wouldn't be here today without the incredible support of a great sponsor, and ATB has believed in our project from the get-go, and we're just thrilled to be able to use these programs to celebrate that friendship and to talk a little bit more about our partnership and just how important it's been and how valuable it's been. We've got Peggy Garrity, Chief Reputation and Brand Officer for ATB, up to the podium. Give her a big round of applause, everybody.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks, Adam. It's fantastic to be here and to help being part of sharing all of these amazing stories. Andrew is here, and he knows that we've been in this from the very beginning, from before this building even existed, believing in the stories and the importance of telling the stories about fantastic musicians, not only here in Alberta, but all across Canada. And so we're really especially pleased tonight to be here to recognize Raghav and the amazing story that he brings for the kinds of things that he's done. And we are at ATB. We're really interested in the stories of Albertans and the stories of people across the country, and we're trying to be a place that really understands and supports musicians and talented people in the incredible journey that they have as entrepreneurs, because they really are. The music industry has changed dramatically over the years. I'm not in the music business, but just watching it from the outside, it's virtually unrecognizable from the way it was 10 years ago. And so young musicians, they have to look at things in a very different way than what they did in the past. And so, like any kind of entrepreneur, and we take it as our mission to support entrepreneurs, it takes a lot of talent and inspiration for young musicians to make a go of it. But it's not good enough just to be musically talented anymore. You have to know so much more. The life is complicated. You have to know about media savvy and awareness about branding and even business acumen. And so it's a similar story for lots of the entrepreneurs that we work with. So it's not something for the faint of heart. It's not a career choice for people who are risk adverse. And so we don't say this enough, it takes a lot of guts to make a career in the arts. And at ATB, we're not only proud supporters of the National Music Centre and the kinds of endeavors here, but we really want to try to understand and help be supporters for musicians and talented artists and people who make their livelihood in the arts, to try to find a way for them to have a sustainable future. And so that's why we're just in the midst of creating, and we will be opening a branch for arts and culture. And I think Ben Spencer is here. Ben is a songwriter and a musician, and he was one of my most talented writers. Now we're teaching him to be a banker. And Lauren Slen, who's here somewhere as well, she heads up our branch on Stephen Ave, and what most people don't know is she is an amazing dancer. And so what we're trying to do is understand the lives that people in the arts live and the kinds of challenges that they have, and try to understand how we as bankers can understand them more and help them more on their journeys to be successful. And so they don't quit their dreams. They don't give up because things didn't work out for them. So we're in the midst of doing that. Watch for more about that. The branches that we set up first initially in Edmonton and Calgary, they're not going to look like any branch that you've ever seen. There'll be a performance space, a gallery, a place for artists and musicians to gather. And yes, we'll help them with their banking stuff too. But mostly we want to help them with their lives and help them in every way that we can to manage their debt, to be able to build home or buy a home when they need it, to support their children as they go through their life journeys. So we're here to do that. It's an inspiration for us to be here today. We're especially thrilled to be here to celebrate Raghav and the amazing contributions that he has made, and the music that he's made, and the wonderful things that he has been able to create for our entire world, not just here in Alberta, but all across the world. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for all of you for being here to help with this special celebration tonight. And the only thing I would ask of you is keep celebrating the stories of all of our brilliant musicians all across Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peggy. So a quick note of business, you'll notice some cameras have been positioned here. You all have your cell phones. I'm going to ask you to, put on vibrate if you can, but I also want you to use them. We do have a special hashtag for this evening, which is ATB Storytellers. Very simple. So tweet, Instagram, do whatever you do. Help us get the word out for this amazing program. And we are broadcasting this live on Facebook and YouTube. So please make some noise. If you grew up in Canada at the dawn of the digital age and you loved hip-hop, my next introduction needs no introduction. Cardinal Official has become known as Canada's hip-hop ambassador, an innovator, and one of the first MCs to truly embrace and I think celebrate Canada and Toronto's unique brand of hip-hop. His hit, Bacardi Slang, put T-Dot into the international hip-hop lexicon and paved the way for a new wave of Canadian and international hip-hop superstars. Please give a big Studio Bell welcome to Cardinal Official.
Evening, everybody. Evening, everybody. How are you guys feeling today? Everybody's good? All right, I can go home then. No, I'm very happy to be out here in Calgary. When I come to the West, I think by far Calgary is way better than Edmonton. I'm just saying. Apparently it's a thing. I didn't know that you guys had such a duke out with Edmonton. Like I thought you guys were all cool. Everybody was an Albertan, but apparently not. Apparently you guys are disgusted at their existence, but that's okay. But I'm very happy to be here and be a part of the ATB Storytellers. I'm just letting you know right now, all my notes are on my phone, so if you think I'm texting, I probably am, but I also have notes on here because Raghav has had such an amazing journey and he has such an amazing story to tell all of you guys. I want to make sure that we don't miss anything, so I am going to get into some nice little tidbits for some of you who do not know who Raghav is. Now, how many of you do know who Raghav is, please? And be honest, how many of you are coming to this unaware of his accomplishments and who he might be? Those were his parents that said that. Raghav is a multi-platinum recording artist whose mix of pop, R&B, hip-hop, and Bollywood sounds have garnered him international awards and recognition. Do not have any alcohol before you come out and do a Storytellers, including a 2011 Juno Award nomination. Now listen, he's a bit sensitive, so anytime we say anything that may call for applause, even if you don't feel like it, just random hand claps. It's always good. And there's people watching literally all over the world right now, live streaming. We're live streaming, so there you go. There's the home of the Stampede. All right. His debut 2004 album, Storyteller, sold 1.3 million copies. I don't know according to who, and I don't know if it's like, when people talk about you made $1.3 million, but it's in Mexico, so it's pesos, but apparently he has sold 1.3 million copies worldwide and remains the 6th best-selling international album of all time in India. That's right. He's also collaborated with some of the most prominent names in pop music, including Labyrinth. If you guys don't know who Labyrinth is one. There you go. There's one hand clap. There too. Massive, massive, massive. I think he was actually signed to Simon Cowell. That should let you know the level of excellence that Labyrinth has. Oscar and Grammy winner A.R. Rahman. I'm probably pronouncing a lot of names wrong, and I'm sure as soon as Raghav gets out of here, he will say it's not Raman, it's Rahman, but it doesn't matter. Multi-Grammy winning producers Sly and Robbie. Nelly, Redman, and Afrojack. And hopefully they are not all on the same song, because he'd have some explaining to do. That would be a crazy track. He's a massive sensation internationally, and I'm not just saying that because it says to say that on the paper. He is Canada's greatest pop secret, and for the next almost an hour or so, we're gonna figure out why more people don't know about this amazing talent who happens to be a great friend of mine. I'd now like to welcome my good friend, the incredible Raghav.
Thank you.
How are you doing, my friend?
Whew, I'm feeling tight.
Well, it was
they just told me backstage that we're really strict on time.
Oh.
I'm like, you realize you have a Jamaican and an Indian here today.
I wasn't gonna be the one to tell them, but
yeah.
As long as you know, if you guys don't know
take a nap.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's gonna be a self-induced intermission.
I'm so glad that you're doing this with me. When they invited me to this, they said, who do you want to do it? And it was a no-brainer for me, not only because of our collaborations, but the influence on my music, so I'm happy that you're here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, absolutely. I'm gonna say that and the 3 large Indian guys you sent to my house to make sure I do this. He's well connected, I don't know, he's well connected. I think I wanna start with family. And by that, I don't even mean like, the whole birth thing and so forth. What was your actual family upbringing like? Were you single parents, 2 parents? Did you have brothers, sisters? What was your family life like?
Very lucky in the family regard. I don't have a Michael Jackson story to tell. No one beat me up or treated me badly or anything like that. I had great suburban Indian parents.
Nice.
Which obviously meant that I wanted to be a pop star.
Right.
And
or a pharmacist.
Or a pharmacist. When I moved to Liverpool, I studied at the Paul McCartney School in Liverpool.
Nice.
And they just looked at my name and they put me in the dorm with all the pharmacists and all the doctors.
Of course.
And then I got there, and this is obviously before I had any recognition.
Yeah.
And all of their parents were like, get this bastard out of here. We do not need you cavorting with a musician in here. You're here to study. So they moved me into the musician's dorm after that. So
wicked.
That stereotype holds true. But I was very lucky. I still am very lucky. I have a great sister, wonderful brother-in-law, an exceptional wife, great daughter. And my parents were extremely supportive. More supportive than they actually know. They inspired me to want to make music.
Really? All right. So the reason that I ask you that is because, and it may be a stereotype, but typically having Indian parents, musician or pop star is not first on their list of things that they want for their kids per se. I know my mom used to kick me in the shins several times and say,
oh, you had Indian parents? Oh, our journey's been the same.
That's right. Oh man, is it not politically correct to say? Actually, my father's father was actually Indian, but he was an Indian that went to Jamaica. So
no, that doesn't count.
Doesn't count. Okay.
They were pretty incredible. I mean, one of the unique things about me is I'm not really apt at anything else in life. So they knew from a very early age that I wanted to be a musician, and we had this cultural amalgamation of sounds in our house. My mom and my sister were addicted to Bollywood and all the gossip associated with the Bollywood stars. And I loved listening to Michael Jackson. And my dad used to work in Germany and used to bring home Harry Belafonte cassettes. I imagine because they were on sale. And I don't think Germany's a big Caribbean music land. So somewhere in the hallway.
Nazis, Belafonte.
Yeah, somewhere in the hallway of that sound, of that house, is I think where my sound was created. Now, despite having exceptionally supportive parents and a supportive family, there was probably a period during high school where I was horrendously embarrassed of anything Indian. If you told me I'd be sitting here looking like an Indian Liberace in front of people in downtown Calgary, I would have probably said it's not the case, because My Indian friends didn't think it was a great idea for me to be making music, and my non-Indian friends didn't understand anything about that culture. So without anybody doing anything overtly negative to me, I was kind of embarrassed of it. And I kind of reconnected with that when I got to England. But we'll get there.
Okay, cool. So you were born in Canada?
I was born in the T-Dot.
You were born in Toronto. Nice. I knew that's why I like this guy.
It's great because when the single came out yesterday, CBC Here and Now are like Toronto's own Raghav.
Yeah.
The BBC are like British Asian artist Raghav.
Yeah.
The Indians are like, oh, it's our Indian Raghav. And in Calgary, they're like, oh, welcome a local hometown guy Raghav. So I'm a fraud.
Well, that's sick because you have the best of 5 worlds. So that's incredible. So, what was it? What was your experience like? I guess coming up. Well, it's so complicated now because I actually thought that you were born in Calgary. So when did you leave Toronto?
When I was 2.
When you were 2, and from Toronto you went to?
We came to Calgary and we lived our whole lives here, despite a brief stint in Fort McMurray.
Oh, it's a tough town up there. Been up there, dirt roads and pickups. And hip-hop concerts, because I did 2 shows up there.
And I'd love to go back. I've never been back to Fort McMurray.
You never been?
I had a tough time in Fort McMurray because I'm a Flames fan.
Oh.
And it was the early 90s, and the bleed over from those asses up north still kind of was prevalent in Fort McMurray. So there were a lot of Oilers fans. So
Gotcha.
It kind of ruined that portion of my childhood.
I'm hoping that this is going to be a great answer and not one that's filled with too much torment for you. But what was it like being somebody of Indian descent that grew up in Calgary?
For example, right now, it's pretty cool because I get to be kind of inconspicuous here. Sometimes people think I'm the mayor.
The mayor is way more of a nice guy than you are, that's for sure.
I did a lot of campaigning. I was promised people candy cane trucks and stuff, whatever you need. So I don't know if he's here tonight, but he has a lot of really crappy promises that I promised to live up to for him.
Oh, man.
Actually, the first time I met the mayor was in his little very grand mayoral Oval Office. And it was Mayor Nenshi, myself, and Ian Hanuman Singh, all in the same room, alone together in the mayor's office. I thought we really are taking shit over. Did you come up in a very religious household? Not particularly. Oh, my parents are here tonight. I don't know what to say. I suppose we were too lazy to go to the temple on Sunday generally. So it was like basically non-religion by just wanting to stay home and eat on Sunday. But we're very Indian.
Okay.
I'd say, culturally, musically, cuisine-wise, very Indian. And I had to watch the hour-long episode DVDs of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, which took me years to watch. So, no, I'm not very religious.
Fair enough. I obviously in Toronto we have, and for all of you guys that might have spent your whole life in Calgary and not a lot of time in Toronto, there is a supreme mix of pretty much everything in Toronto. So it's like one of the things that I discovered traveling the world is that nothing actually surprised me. Literally when we went on tour in India, I remember the first night that I went there, and they're like, we're gonna take you out for Indian food. And I'm like, all right, cool. And they're like, yeah, beware though, it's spicy. And I'm like, all right. And we got there and we whipped through it. We're like, man, this has nothing on Gerrard Street. We were in India, but it's like they took us to this, I guess it must be some tourist place or whatever. And they were a little bit embarrassed. But I think just growing up in Toronto, there's so many different kinds of people and foods and religions and the whole nine. And I think what's amazing is when I first started touring, I think the first tour we went on was like, we were still in high school, like in '96. The minute that we got out of Toronto and started traveling into Northern Ontario, I remember our first stop, it's a typical thing that you'd see on TV. You walked into the gas stop and everybody in plaid just kind of turned around. And we were like, don't worry, we're just here for the toilets. But what's amazing is having toured this country several times over, where we are now, I think is we've grown exponentially in so many ways, not just in population, but I think in terms of, I don't like using the words tolerance, because I don't think we should tolerate each other, but just growing and being exposed to each other's cultures and the way we live. And I think it's amazing. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on, a good friend of mine who is Jagmeet Singh, who is doing massive things for the country right now, being the first brown person that is actually the head of the NDP across the country, federally, what, it's gonna be a while for a Jamaican to get there, but what does it feel like, only because we're late all the time, but what does it feel like, having obviously he's Sikh, so it's different. I know some of you guys don't know what the difference is. It's different, but at the end of the day, how does it feel for you being somebody that has never shied away from your culture? You know what I'm saying? When it comes to you being an artist, what does that feel like to have somebody in that position of power within the country that you come from, also be another proud brown person?
I mean, it's great. It's eye-opening. I think, having spent the last decade or so in the UK, I've seen a quicker transition. It's funny how many more people you get from other countries when you oppress them for a long time. So the UK's kind of, they're a little further along in both their acceptance and overt hatred for other cultures. Canada is kind of like, hey, come on in, not too close though. Come on in, but over there. And so the Jagmeet Singh thing was obviously, I swell with pride whenever I see anybody who comes from a community that the stereotype is that you shouldn't do something, and they do.
Right.
Whether they're Indian or Jamaican or anything.
Mm-hmm.
There was a poll though that came out last week, and I shouldn't be quoting polls because I just read them on Twitter. And they've tended to be quite wrong recently. But that said that a third of people that agree with him wouldn't vote for him. So I think we got a long way to go. I'm intensely proud of being Canadian. We have this amazing melting pot, but we have a long way to go. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of cultural acceptance. Actually, acceptance is the wrong word, but just understanding. Mm-hmm. And I like to think that I've won as much as I've lost because of my background. So I have this.
How so?
I have this global Indian fan base, which are great to me, that love me and treat me really well. And at the same time, sometimes I feel my music wins because it's maybe given. Well, we need to represent this culture in here. So sometimes, yeah, you agree, darling? So I kind of get that affirmative action and maybe ornamental usage. Mm. And at the same time, sometimes it's not looked at for what it is, for how good it is or how bad it is. Mm-hmm. So we got a long way to go, but let's not be downers about it. It's so much better than it used to be. Mm-hmm. The fact that I'm able to be here with the name that I have and have kept it and have built a career starting in the UK, coming back here, I think is a testament to how far we've come.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I think so, absolutely. Let's start to explore that while actually exploring the timeline of how your career has grown in the places that it's taken you. So obviously, you started here. Did you, get involved in the local talent shows and that whole kind of mess?
I feel like you have footage that I don't want to be released.
Just play the footage. No, I'm just joking.
I was in the Calgary Stampede, have the Youth Talent Showdown.
Oh, nice.
I was in it for a couple of years. Yeah, it's great. I never won.
And you won at life, though, so it's okay.
I went from genre to genre. So one year I was 13, I sang Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid.
Under the sea. That one?
Yeah. You know the Disney crab that culturally appropriated your people?
Yes, I know. That's why it's so funny to me.
Yeah, I did that. So even now when I'm working with like Stephen McGregor or Sly and Robbie, these reggae legends, my Jamaican accent is just Sebastian the Crab from Little Mermaid. So I had Under the Sea, and then in an equally poor decision, the next year I did Achy Breaky Heart.
Wow.
And so the fact that I didn't win needs no further explanation.
We like him, he's talented, but poor choice of songs.
Yes. Have you looked in the mirror, son? I don't think you should be singing Achy Breaky Heart.
So what was the catalyst for your journey to the UK?
Oh my goodness, that's a huge question. Obviously family support, knowing I wanted to make music. Going back further than that, in junior high, I joined the Youth Singers of Calgary, which played a huge role in 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes it was a show choir. It still is an amazing choir. Please join. And but I had a great time there. Made amazing friends. I picked out a high school where I knew I'd be in a good music program. So I went to Sir Winston Churchill High School, where Brian Farrell. And Brian...
You graduated, or are you still going?
And Mr. Farrell was there, and he'd had a lot of success with other folks going in the music industry. So I went there and skipped math class for 3 years and spent all my time in the music room, and from high school had fully committed to putting all my eggs in one basket and making music. And then I went to LA for a year right after high school. And I studied with Seth Riggs, which was amazing. Do you know Seth?
No.
So he's a vocal coach in LA.
Sorry, remember when I said that the mayor's much nicer? This guy name drops in and says, "Do you know him?" I know, you're a loser. Sorry, continue.
Sorry, he's worked with... I worked with Seth Riggs for a year and couldn't afford it any longer after a year. But so I came home and I got a job at A&B Sound downtown.
Nice.
Selling Discman. People clap at everything. This is a little ridiculous. I worked at A&B Sound.
I wonder where they got that
from. So I worked there, and then I went to Liverpool, and I studied at LIPA. And so the catalyst was really trying to find a place where I could find my sound. So I went to school for a year in Liverpool, and I worked with... Do you know Erskine Thompson? No?
Nope.
Okay. Yikes. So Erskine managed Maxi Priest. You know Maxi Priest?
Yes, I know
messing
Maxi
with you.
Priest.
So Erskine managed Maxi Priest.
He's Jamaican, that's the only reason I know.
So Erskine managed Maxi Priest and started a boy band of 4 Liverpudlians. Well, I had to pretend to be from Liverpool. I was really from Calgary.
Did you say Liverpudlians?
So that's what someone from Liverpool is.
Wow. So glad.
There are other things, but they are also Liverpudlians. And so I had to pretend to be from Liverpool, faked like a Liverpudlian accent for the first year of my career. And then Erskine passed away, and he also managed Sly and Robbie.
Okay.
And he worked with Danny D and the gentleman who ended up being my first manager, Nairan Prasad. And Nairan and I met. I moved to London, and I lived there for probably 3-4 years above a cafe on Holloway Road.
Wow.
And it was like rat infested. And I remember my parents coming and just being like, maybe we made a bad decision. And I lived there for a couple of years, and then things just started to culturally shift in the UK. There's a show called Goodness Gracious Me, which became the #1 sitcom on the BBC, and it was like Indian Saturday Night Live. But the thing was that I noticed about it is the Indians weren't laughing to it. They were all jokes that we told at home. It was all the non-Indians that were finding it funny because our culture was so a part of UK British culture. Nitin Sawhney started making waves. Punjabi MC had the Mundiya To Bach Ke record that ended up with Jay-Z on it. And all of a sudden, it was like cool to be Indian. I was like, oh my God. I don't have to fake being Puerto Rican now. Hello, everybody! And just like that, I got a record deal.
Amazing.
So the first, actually I didn't get, sorry, I'm gonna make the story longer. They said we got 50 minutes to go. So the first thing I did was, beyond my writing, was a song called Turn Me On, written by Kevin Little. So even you don't know the story.
What?
So we did a version of a record called Turn Me On that I recorded here with my buddy Neil Broadbent down south. And it like spread like wildfire. One Extra, before One Extra, the pirates that were going to become One Extra.
Yep.
And it was probably #1 on every pirate chart in the UK, and everyone was
say
like,
heart. One sec. Pirate radio is not what you guys are thinking. It's not a bunch of people in ships drinking rum and whatever. Pirate radio is where
it's not far from that, really.
Well, that's true. But just like if you guys are familiar with pirate radio in Florida, it's a big part of the culture, and a lot of times stars actually have their songs, like the birth of it becoming something massive comes from pirate radio because there's very little restrictions and you can just play the good shit. So sorry, go on.
So we started getting shows off it, and I did it with a producer named Wesley Tuplay. And it was, Guy was gonna sign it, Guy Moot. And it was gonna be...
I know Guy Moot.
My G.
Yes. There's one, I'm 1 in 5.
And 112 had a sample in Turn Me On. And it wouldn't get cleared. So, I mean, obviously it was a big island record. Massive island record before it became mainstream. But if you go to the UK, the original version of Turn Me On is Tuplay featuring Raghav.
Wow.
And we just couldn't get the sample cleared because Kevin was like, well, I am not clearing the sample so you can have a hit record.
Right.
So he put it out, it was a hit. But off the back of that, we wrote a track called So Confused, which I did with Wesley Tuplay, which spent 4 weeks in the top 10. And we put my solo project on hold, and then in the 4th week, my first solo single, Can't Get Enough, came out. And it was the first time in, don't fact check me on this, but it was the first time in a very long time that an artist had 2 singles in the top 10 in the same week. And it was just like 3 years of living in this
squalor.
And all of a sudden had a deal. And within about 3 months, it just like everything just changed so quick.
I was gonna say, how did life change like after that?
Well, it changed. A lot more air miles. I remember like we got called to do the MTV video, some MTV award in India, and they were like, come here, your record's like, there's a little bit of something going on. You should do the show for free, which is something I hear a lot from Indian promoters. And we were like, cool, MTV, let's go do it. And we landed at the airport, and there was like 500 people waiting for us, and the album was #1, and we were like, we've been had during the internet. But we went and we did it, and it was like, oh my goodness. What's happening in the UK and what's happening in India. Because at that time in India, pop music was still a deal. It was like, it had a real renaissance. But India's a funny market. I always say, the word copyright in India means they have the right to copy your shit. So, there was a period of like 2 years where pop music was probably ahead of Bollywood music in India. And for those people here that are familiar with the Bollywood diaspora, they know how big that is. Bollywood is king. And then Bollywood just said, why are we letting these guys from England and Canada and the USA come over and be taking up so much airtime? So payola's in big effect in India. And it's had an effect on the pop music industry, which is why I try and make some more Bollywood records now. But that was a unique time. I'd like to think it'll come around again because some of the pop music that was made in the UK that went over to India was some groundbreaking stuff. I'd like to think I was a small part of that.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think you were a big part of that because, and you can't, can't clap for that. The funny thing, and this is not really because he's sitting here, but when I first really found out the effects is when people are like, yeah, you must know Raghav, he's from Canada. I'm like, well, no, I don't know him. They're like, he's massive. How can you not know him? And this kind of is a segue into my next question. It seems like you go overseas and you're literally the biggest thing, you know what I'm saying? And it's like there's a handful of you, yourself, Jay Sean came along. There's a bunch of people that are doing all these big things, but then you come back to Canada and it's kind of like all of a sudden you go from the top of the mountain, they put you down, to the bottom and you gotta try and climb and plug away. How does it mess with you in terms of your artistry, being somebody that has sold that 1.3 million albums, and then come back here to where people, if they're lucky, can sell 200,000 albums, but yet they treat you like you're the lesser artist. How does that feel? Because I know for me it would mess with my mind.
Canada was a blessing for me because what happened in the UK, I'd say around 2009 is they really kind of systematically and institutionally decided that Indians were out of fashion. Goodness gracious me is off the air. Everything that was popular within British Asian culture was no longer part of the mainstream. And we were given some amazing platforms. I'm not complaining about that. We have the BBC Asian Network in the UK. It's incredible. But what happens is that they go, yeah, you got your own lane. You got your own lane. If they had BBC Jamaica, what would be the incentive for anybody else to look at it from a mainstream perspective? Do you get what I'm saying? I'm not complaining about the Asian Network. They're unbelievable. I got you. What I'm saying is that it gave folks at the top of the chain, top of the chain, to the excuse to say, well, there's already a lane for this. Even if the music is a song like Woohoo or Fire that has nothing Indian about it at all. So for me, I was like, well, that's gonna be tough because my success came off of Radio 1 and KISS and Capitol and those things. So I never have looked at it like that. I went, okay, I'm Canadian. I've never once, during that portion of my career, I never applied for a grant, never tried to benefit from Canadian content. And I came back and I thought, well, this will be easy to clean up. In fact, if anything, I've been treated really fairly. Maybe I came in a little arrogantly because I came in with the record that we did with Labyrinth so much. And that was the first Canadian single. And I thought we're gonna clean up here. And we did pretty well. We got the Juno nomination, but you're right, the numbers are way lower. And I realized that Canada was a place, maybe still is a place, and this is not an insult to Canadian pop music, that if you want to make an innovative record, it may not be the testing ground for it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Comparatively to the UK, for sure.
Excuse me, sorry. Yes, comparatively to the UK. And so, while so much is something that I thought, critically was acclaimed, and I was like, oh, this is amazing, I really had to go back in and make a record like Fire for it to be a smash in Canada. Right. And that's not, sorry, let me do this before I choke.
We don't want that. Or do.
My wife's like, choke. So I made a record like Fire, and I give a lot of that credit to Neil McGonigal. I don't know if Neil's here today.
We'll clap for Neil.
Neil he's a legend in Calgary, and he's a legend to me because he said, son, you cannot eat a gold record. You cannot eat critical acclaim. You should simplify your writing a bit, because one thing that happens in the UK with a lot of artists, I find, is they're always trying to outsmart themselves and be ahead of the curve, and maybe don't have, are not quite in tune with just what folks want to listen to. And so I went in and begrudgingly wrote the simplest record I could have written in my life. I wrote Fire, and I rhymed it with higher, and I said it over and over again. And I said, take this shit. Gold record. So I was like, and I know that you've been there too, because you've like, for me, Bacardi Slang is one of my top 5 favorite songs of all time. And you know that like, that is a list with Billie Jean in it, and Jealous, Labyrinth, and Zion, Lauryn Hill. So that is a, though it's just me, it's a prestigious list to be in. So
and most people go as Michael Jackson, Cardinal. Just my mom.
So, but Bacardi Slang is one of the smartest records I've ever heard in my life. But Dangerous was the smash, right? And so for me, I felt the same about Fire.
Right.
But Akon didn't do my record.
Right. Well, let me, seeing as we don't have too much more time, speaking to you right now, I literally, like everything that you said, there's 20 more questions I have for you, because I feel there's so many layers to what your story can, how it can speak to people. And I really want for people to understand how important your existence, not just in the UK is, but also in this country. Because here we don't really have many people that embrace their Indian culture, that manage, you know what I mean, to really penetrate that top 40 and do it more than once and have that presence. Because I remember, it might have been like one of the New Year's, like I think I was at home and I was like, man, they didn't hire me. I was like, well, they switch channels, come on! So I remember as I was at home.
I was making that Cardi money.
And I was watching him New Year's Eve. So, I mean, you know, everybody's at home and obviously they love you and they love your song, but I mean, it's a really big deal. And I think, like, you know, above everything that you've accomplished, you should feel really proud for being such a very, very unapologetically proud Canadian, but also a proud Canadian that really goes out there and promotes his culture and his lineage as well. And I think that's massive. And I think that it's massive because you're such a great example for all the kids that are coming up, you know, the kids that, not necessarily of Indian lineage, but that might be, you know, Korean, or they might be whatever, it doesn't matter, First Nations or whatever. I think the reason
I'm not trying to help out the Korean kids, man. What are you saying, bro? I'm kidding.
Oh my gosh, if you know Rag, if you know that this is his humor and it's amazing. He really doesn't like the Koreans though. But
it is not barbecue. You should be offended. That is not barbecue. Come, we'll show you barbecue. Come
on. But what would your advice be to, you know, a young, I don't know, 14, 15-year-old kid that kind of discovers, hey, this might be my calling. This might be what I should do for a living. And it may not, you know, be the regular type of artistry that fits into a box. What would you say maybe to a 14 or 15-year-old Raghav?
Don't do it, the industry's sinking. You know, like, that's a joke. No one laughed. Of course do it, but it's a lot. I kind of feel like it's harder and easier. It's easier to get your name out there because you can fart on a YouTube and get 1 million hits.
It only actually gets you 200,000.
But
got that joke
but in terms of a sustainable career, it's really hard. So one thing that I became really passionate about in the past couple of years is doing what I do independently for myself. So first I was with V2, and you know what it's like to be with a major, and V2 was Richard Branson's cheeky way after he sold Virgin of having another label. And V2 went into insolvency in 2007 or 8 when all the labels, the whole paradigm shift happened of how you exploit masters in the industry and how you make money on them. And so V2 went into insolvency, and I said, well, I don't need a label, I'll do it on my own. And spent a lot of money trying to do it on my own, and it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And it hurts a lot more when it's your own money. But what it did teach me is that you can, if you have a strategic plan, a business plan, and you have a great product, you can do it on your own. One of the things, even maybe more than the stuff in my own career that I've been really proud of, is I signed a kid here last year from Airdrie named Christian Hudson. And Christian's dope. Christian won the Youth Talent. He won the Youth Talent Showdown.
I'm assuming he didn't sing under the...
I hated everybody that won post 94. And Christian won, but he did an amazing thing. He donated all the money to the local drop-in center.
Wow.
And so, yes, that does deserve applause.
So I was going to say it's easy to say that he's not Indian then. Whoa, hello.
He donated all the money to the drop-in center, and I found about it writing The Underground in London. This altruistic thing, this amazing kid that won this talent competition in Calgary did. So we stayed in touch, and his management kept sending me music. And then I heard Four Leaf Clover, and I signed it. And I thought, why don't I just do exactly what I do with myself, take the same business ethic and the same idea, and put it into a record that I really believe in. And we went to radio, and it's been like, this record, it's been like 30 weeks straight top 20.
Wow.
It just will not die. It's like Dick Cheney.
Oh.
in that it won't die. Like Dick Cheney.
Oh my gosh.
And anyway, so it just keeps living, and to me, and then we obviously upstreamed it to your folks at Universal and Capitol in the States.
I was going to say by my folks, he meant Universal, not black people. I'm also an executive at Universal Music, so that's what he was getting.
Yes. So we upstreamed it to Universal Capitol, and it's been doing its thing. And I started to go, while I'm making my records, and now that I have a beautiful baby, it'd be cool to do. Hey, baby.
That's amazing. I need to train my daughter to do that.
They're born with that talent, Cardi. That was cool.
That was right on cue.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I don't know what I'm saying. I got all dadded up now.
We're talking about upstreaming.
Oh yeah. I thought this is pretty cool because there's a lot of great pop music that happens in Western Canada, particularly here in Alberta, that I can confidently say doesn't get the fair shine globally, not just in Canada. Like, think big. And what we're proving with Christian is the same thing I've been doing with myself, is that you can take a great song and make it travel around the world and turn it into a real business.
Wicked. All right, I have two final quick things before we get on to the next amazing part of this evening, which is having Raghav perform. Now, it says here you've collaborated with some guy named Cardinal, Redman, Labyrinth, like so many different people. What was your favorite collaboration that you did?
I got a great Redman story. This is true story about Redman. I don't know if it's okay to say this. He'll get it.
Okay.
Oh no. Redman smokes a lot of weed.
Oh.
And so...
Sorry, hold on. His name is Redman not because he's red, but maybe the color of his eyes most of the time.
So
I'm sure he's fine with it.
We're doing the record together, and I just went independent, and I'm like, look, Red, we're discussing his fee and all that. And he's like, look, my Indian brother, he's like, every time I go into a FedEx office, all I see is Indian brethren. I'm like, yeah, there are a lot of Indian folks that work at FedEx. He's like, I'll do the record. I need a bunch of those FedEx envelopes. I'm like, okay. Because you can keep weed in the envelopes and the police can't open a FedEx envelope. Really?
Seriously?
So I'm calling on my homie Samir. I'm like, brother, come down with some FedEx envelopes. He's about to get a 16 from Redman.
So you paid for a feature with
Well,
FedEx.
partially. I don't want to. It's a confidential agreement.
Right.
But
and 2 UPS boxes?
yeah, a couple of. If you ever see Redman with a FedEx, he's not mailing a document.
All right.
But musically, obviously, I don't want to turn this into a butt kissing contest, but it's been great to work with you on 2 singles. I do have a regret though.
What's that?
I have one regret is 2 days before we closed out my debut album, Storyteller, there was 2 songs left to work on. I'd already had 3 top 10 singles, and so the label was looking at the album as kind of just like, let's get it out there contractually, put the album out, not release any more music off the album. But I was convinced, like for me, the big record on the album was Angel Eyes, because of the Sly and Robbie Murder, She Wrote rhythm and all that. So we had 2 days left, and there was a song called Sooner or Later and Angel Eyes. And I said, I have got to put, I didn't know you then, and you Mr. Morgan. So I said, I had to put Cardi on the record. And you were on Sooner or Later because there's 2 spots in the Angel Eyes record. There's 2 spots for MCs, and I used to tour with Frankie Max and Juxie D, and I put them on it, and I love those guys, but it would have been fun to have you on Angel Eyes and tour that around the world. That would have been a lot of fun.
Well, every the odds.
But it didn't happen, and it was still a hit, so I don't know. Maybe it didn't need you, Cardi.
And that's why you're not the mayor. Oh, yes. All right, well, my last very quick question for you then is, because I think I'm about to get the flashlight in the eye. My last question then is, it is, what are we in, October? It's October 2017. Clearly, I'm around too many FedEx envelopes. Secondhand FedEx only. What does the future hold for Raghav? If I always call it the lottery question, but if you played, 649 and you get the 30 mil on Friday, what is the ultimate goal? What would make you feel fulfilled as an artist from this point moving forward?
I mean, I feel pretty fulfilled. I've been able to come from a great city that maybe wasn't exactly the best launching pad for a career in R&B and Bollywood music, but I did it anyway. And I got really lucky. I've met some amazing people along the way. I've worked with people like yourself and A.R. Rahman and Labs and Sly and Rob. I've worked with people that I never in my wildest dreams could have imagined I'd work with. So this is not a very artisty thing to say, and I still want to have big hits, and I got singles out, and I wake up every morning to check the Spotify numbers and do all that. But like my story is an unlikely one, I think. And there's certain things along the way that I go, I could have done this. We were talking backstage about when I met Jive, when Fire was a big hit in Canada, and I met Jive, and they said, we'll sign the record, but you got to change your name. And I was pretty bitter about it at the time, but I do understand now that things have to be palatable to the mainstream for them to look at it. Having said that, the last guy that was president, his middle name was Hussein, so I think anything's possible. And maybe it's just how good you are. And so I hope to learn from my mistakes and keep those standards high. And when they're not high, people let me know. So that's what's great about our business. If you don't do a good job, you know right away you don't do a good job, and you can make as many excuses about it as you want. You probably just weren't good enough. So I think I've learned enough from that to try and do that. Hopefully raise a great family and keep making music, discover some other stars along the way, and take every barrier. Yeah, baby. Take every barrier that they tell you, whether it's your name or your background or where you're from or what kind of music you make or what the sound's like, and turn it into a moment. And I think the other folks that they've had here, Jan Arden and Tegan and Sarah, have similarly had different paths but have had the same same story to tell. So I want to keep doing that, and I feel pretty content about where I'm at and excited about the music that I get to make in the future. I'm very lucky. I have a very unique lane. There's not a lot of folks doing what I do. I'm not protective of it. I'd like to see more of it. I never understand about being jealous about another artist. People say, are you jealous this artist had a big hit or that's? I'm going, are you kidding me? Like, opens the door, and maybe they'll see what the other person brings that's in a similar lane. So I'd like to see more people in that lane, because my cultural story is not a unique one. I'm of an Indian background. I love Bollywood music. I'm hugely immersed in Indian culture, and I'm equally proud of being Canadian and growing up in a country music town and listening to that kind of music. I don't know what the question was, but I'm happy.
You answered it. Well, what I like about today is that a lot of you were already familiar with Raghav, but I don't think, well, first of all, that you were familiar with his humor, because this is the banter that I get on the phone all the time.
You don't call me.
Sorry?
You never call me. You never.
I didn't say I called you. But, you know, your intentions are pure. You're supremely intelligent.
That's my Tinder profile. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Christ, I'm trying to wrap this up with a red bow. This guy's killing it already. So you're supremely intelligent. Your intentions are pure. You're very motivated. You're very creative, extremely determined. And I'm just glad that we got to share it with the beautiful people of Calgary and all the people at home, and, you know, that they were able to be exposed to more of how awesome of a person as a Canadian and an artist that you are. So I think everybody here, if we could give him a big round of applause.
Yes, sire.
And what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna actually join you guys over there in the audience and heckle him while he does a couple of songs for us. I'm sure we've all been waiting for him to actually sing a couple of songs, see what all this fuss is about while you have on your Michael Jackson jacket. So, yes, you do your thing.
Okay.
You do your thing, and
this is the awkward part.
And set up. It's only gonna be awkward for me because now I gotta tell jokes for a couple minutes while you get ready.
Okay.
What am I doing? You can do exactly that, what you're doing. You can walk off like the star that you are, and don't worry, everybody's just paying attention to me, and it's only awkward for me. How was that? Was that good for you guys? Yeah? Cool. I paid somebody to wiki him, and they came back with like 1.5 questions, so I had to wing the rest of it because, yeah, nobody outside of his direct family actually knows much about him. He's... I'll tell you an honest story that happened. It's so funny. The song that I remember doing with him is So Much back in, I think, 2010. I specifically remember being in Chicago and going to the video shoot because he had a very well-mannered, extremely intelligent, playboy type women at the video, and I was like, who is this Raghav? And I went there, and like we had such an amazing time. It was a lot of fun. He was super cool. And the funny thing was, it's like that's always been my memory of like our song together. And then today, he's saying something, and he's like, "Yeah, you remember? Because you remember you were on my debut in 2004." I was like, "Excuse me?" And it's hilarious, and I'm halfway embarrassed and halfway patting myself on the back because that just shows you how much work I was doing in 2004. But literally, he played the song, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that is my voice? Zero recollection of doing this, of doing the song. And, I was embarrassed enough backstage, but I think that is so crazy. That's the type of...
It wasn't a hit. I forgot it too.
But that is the type of work ethic I think that I had, is that you just churn them out sometimes. And the same thing with Raghav. The thing is, like, we really would call each other a lot, and he has so many different ideas, and he's always like looking for the next innovative way to kind of jump back into the scene and just, take off like right where he left off. So, that's one of the reasons why I like Raghav, is because anytime I see his name on my phone, he's up to something. And he's not just up to something small. Like, he'll call you and he'll be like, Cardi, I was thinking of doing a song with Beyonce, Jay-Z, and acquiring some never heard before Michael Jackson lyrics and putting it all in one song and having it be produced by, and I'm just looking at the phone like, who's funding this and how do I get their number? But that's just the type of artist he is. And I think what's amazing is when he comes out here, you'll be able to hear him not drowned out by a 2-track or a big band, but you'll be able to hear the purity of his voice and hear why he's able to kind of like switch between Bollywood-influenced music to R&B to pop to reggae-influenced music and everything in between. He's a really talented vocalist as well as a very talented songwriter, and Calgary should be very proud. Raghav, are you ready back there? Are you ready? All right, everybody make some noise for Raghav!
हुए तो हैं अल्लाह दा पूरी तरह मगर नहीं हुए हैं क्यों अल्लाह दा है नाम से अल्लाह दा जुड़ी हुई है रूह तो है नाम के अल्लाह दा तेरे बगैर जीना लगता है दिल है मगर सीना लगता है खाली ओ मेरी गली अल्लाह दा तेरा शहर अल्लाह दा यादों का है पता वही जहाँ हुए अल्लाह दा तेरे बगैर जीना लगता है दिल है मगर सीना लगता है खाली दिन रात अधूरापन चीरे जंग लगे गुरूर की धार से तकिए का नींद से तो झगड़ा हुआ सा है कांटे घड़ियों के धीरे चले हैं क्यों वक्त से हो तेरे लगता है खाली दिल है मगर सीना लगता है खाली ओ अल्लाह दा हुए तो हैं अल्लाह दा पूरी तरह मगर नहीं हुए हैं क्यों अल्लाह दा
My homie John Day. And my man Pat Bellevaux. It's pretty easy when you've made a few albums to run out of inspiration, and when all your records are about booty grinding in the club, it makes it just a little bit harder to get deep. Though still inspiring. So when I found out we were having a baby, that's as all people here that are parents know, that's some pretty inspirational stuff. And so this is the new single, and it's about that.
The heat of the fire. I don't wanna dance on the sun. Don't need angels and choirs. All I need is someone. I don't want the rivers, the oceans. I don't need fortune and fame. Save me all the commotion. I just wanna hear your name. Oh, I don't want nothing but love. Oh, it's only love that I want. You got me begging, baby, please come and drop me right to my knees. Whoa, I don't want nothing but love. Top of the mountain, I feel the height of my climb, but I still feel like I'm drowning until you are mine. I won't dance with the devil, I won't let him come near, 'cause I'm almost at heaven, 'cause you're almost here. Oh, I don't want nothing but love. Oh, it's only love that I want. You got me begging, baby, please come and drop me right to my knees. Whoa, I don't want nothing but love. Whoa. It's only love that I want. You got me begging, baby, please come and drop me right to my knees. Whoa, I don't want nothing but love. Whoa.
Party.
Oh, man. I'm just going to take the mic. I don't know if my mic is on. Hello, check 1, 2. One more time, please, for my good friend, Raghav. Listen, this ATB Storytellers has been amazing. It has actually been absolutely my pleasure. I've had a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. Did you guys have fun out there today? I know you say you're a proud Calgarian, but I definitely heard a little bit of Newfoundland in that first song.
You know, India was a newfound land to British people when they came over there.
Hello, I got the joke. Is there anything that you'd like to say upon closing? Just a last quick thing.
It's great. I mean, obviously, it's great to be home. I live here. A lot of people don't know that. So I appreciate the National Music Center for hooking me up. ATB, we're going to speak mortgage in a minute. And obviously, for having you here, it's obviously a lot of fun to have you here. And now, thinking about it, Bacardi slang ain't in the top 5 anymore now that you ribbed me a little bit. I was going to be Liberian Girl and you're number 6. So we're good. But no, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody here, Pat Beliveau, John Day, all the good people at the National Music Center, to my family, people, thank you. Adam.
And how about a big thank you to Cardinal Official, to your ATB Storyteller, Raghav, to ATB for making this happen. Thank you guys so much for doing this. It's a real pleasure. Amazing.